Three, two, one. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whenever you're listening to this. This is episode 3 of the Explicit Thoughts of. And let's go ahead and get right into it. Today's workout that I did, as you know, because we always go through the workout because we're fucking pumped and we're ready to go. Get our day started strong. We hit chest today. And what I did was I started out with a warm up stretching. Not static stretches. I like to do dynamic stretching prior to workout, just to get the blood flowing, get the old joints and everything lubed up and ready for use. So we did a couple rounds on the bag as well, just basic jab, cross, hook techniques, just to work some hands into the workout and get a nice little heart rate up and get a nice little stretch and get some blood flowing through the body. Then, excuse me, we went into our, I believe we did 4 different exercises for the chest, which we did first was the bent over cable flies, and I love that exercise. I feel like it really isolates the medial pectoral muscle. That's what the fuck it's called. Like I said, I'm not a physiologist or a nutritionist or any kind of expert on any of this. I just do what feels right. So we went in for 4 sets, very, very high reps. I think I had the weights at about 50 pounds on each cable, and we did about 26 reps. Pretty much just trying to fatigue the muscle right away, just right out the gate, just burn it. And then we bumped the weight up by 10 pounds, and I think we hit 15 reps on the next set. Bumped it up again by 10 pounds, and I think we hit 12 reps. And then on the last set, we went back to like 26 reps, but we dropped the weight drastically to probably like 35 or 40 pounds on each side of the cable. After that, we took a break, got some water because hydrate or die, and went right back into it with the, I call them the crossovers. Basically, you set the cables high, and then you do the push down. I have no clue what the shit's called, so I can put a video up one day of me doing the chest workouts if that's going to be more beneficial to you than me explaining it. But for now, I just call them the crossovers, the push down crossovers, for lack of a expert term. We did 4 sets of those with about medium weight, probably I'd say 40 pounds, and just did them till fatigue. Each set I think was probably close to 20 reps. We did that 4 times. Then we got the bench out with the cables. I did all cable workouts yesterday for chest. I didn't feel like hitting the dumbbells or the bench press at all. And we got overhead military press, and I think we hit 4 sets of those on a pretty heavy weight. I think this was probably the least amount of reps we did. I think we did 15, 12, 8, and then 6, and it was pretty heavy. I think we ended up hitting the whole stack on the cables. After that, what was the last exercise we did? I'm trying to remember. It was a good fucking workout. So good, I don't remember. Don't you love that? How that works out? Like when they say, "Do you remember me?" No, I don't remember you. Because there's really no need to ever call them again. Like they said in Waiting. That's not PC at all. Should we cut that out? Ah, fuck it. We'll leave it in. Um, what was the last exercise that we did? I'm having a blank here. I'm not sure at the moment. I can get the full rundown later on. But so we got into that. Then we stretched out again after those uh, um, sets. And then I did 2 more rounds on the bag, about a minute and a half each. Pretty much just as hard as I could. Heart rate was already up, blood was flowing, so I just wanted to get some power punching in, just to really, work some technique, but also work the power and just making sure everything is oiled up and ready to go. After that, let's see here. I went and had more water. Stay hydrated. Piss is looking pretty orange after that workout, so we went in and really needed to rehydrate. Um, See, I sweat a lot already, even when I'm just sitting here. I don't do anything and I can sweat. So when I work out, it's like a pool coming out of my body. It's crazy. It's nasty too. Sometimes when you're walking around in the mall or you're out to dinner or something, and I'm just sweating profusely, and everybody's like, "Well, you're not even doing anything." I'm like, "Yeah, I'm just living and sweating." It's crazy. Um, well, while we're on the subject of athletics and exercise, let's go ahead and talk about football this weekend, the NFL. There were 15 games. I chose 12 games to make hot picks on. Um, and as always, I'm almost 99.9% correct. Don't worry about the math. Just trust me and take my word for it. I would never lie to you. Ever. Not even to make myself look better. What the fuck ever. So obviously I got out of the 12 games that I did pick, I did not pick correctly for 3 of them, which 2 of the games that I did not pick correctly were really freaking crazy. I cannot believe that I was wrong. I cannot believe what happened during those games. So let's go ahead and get into one of those games. The Eagles versus the Titans. I actually watched the end of that game and then into overtime. It just looks like the Eagles secondary is struggling very badly, and so is the offensive line. I don't know what the Vegas odds or predictions are for this season so far, but the Philadelphia Eagles do not look like the same team that went to the Super Bowl last year. And I don't know that they will. I think they'll definitely make the playoffs, but I think they'll struggle through that, and I don't know that they'll actually get anywhere in the playoffs the way they're playing. I mean, they have offensive weapons. They have Jay Ajayi back from injury, uh, Aguilar, Jeffrey, Ertz. I mean, they have offensive weapons, and Carson Wentz is back and healthy. It just seems like the offensive line is not producing, and the Eagles' secondary on defense is just not looking well. I mean, Marcus Mariota is back starting for the Titans, and they just couldn't really do anything to really stop him, especially on the last drive when they were going downfield in overtime. I was pretty amazed by the lack of urgency and how many times they were just giving up, and penalty plays cost them a lot. That's something that Doug Peterson's going to need to step up if they want to try and recreate their run from last year. So I did not pick correctly on the Eagles versus Titans. I had the Eagles winning that game, and they lost. The other game that I was surprised by was the Browns versus the Raiders. I had the Browns winning that game, and the Raiders actually ended up pulling it out and winning. The Browns, I mean, I think they're a sleeper team. I think they just got to find ways to win because they definitely have a very stacked offense. They have Tyrod Taylor now as a backup, it looks like, to Mayfield. And it's, he's young. He's a rookie. I think this yesterday or I think it was his first NFL start of the season, so you got to give him time to grow. But I think the Browns have definitely improved from the last 20,000 years. I don't know. Uh, but they definitely look a lot better, and I think they're a team to beat. I think they got to find ways to make it happen. I mean, they're really close, and they have star receiver Jarvis Landry on the team. Um, I mean, they look good, and the Raiders, you know, Gruden's gonna pretty much make that team what he wants it to be, and so you got to work within the process there. The other game that I did not pick correctly was the Bengals versus the Falcons. I had the Falcons winning that game, and if you watched it, it was a barn burner. It was definitely a back and forth, suspenseful game, especially for the Atlanta fans and the Bengals fans. I don't really give a crap about either of those teams, but Matt Ryan showed he still had some skills. Andy Dalton was looking good. Um, and I had the Bengals win or losing that game, and they actually came away with the win. So out of the 12 games I picked, those were the three that I did not pick accurately on. Let's run down the rest of this list. The Texans versus the Indianapolis Colts. That game was not looking good for the Indianapolis Colts for quite some time, and then they came back and tied it. I believe they took the lead in overtime, and then the Texans on a pretty. It was a storybook ending to, or actually, it was like a film ending to a movie for this game because the Texans just out of nowhere had some miraculous plays and won the game. The Bills versus the Packers. I picked the Pack to win. I just think the Buffalo Bills are a terrible team this season, which I'm happy about because they are in the Dolphins AFC East. And go Dolphins. Fins up. The Bears versus the Bucks. I had the Bears winning, but let me tell you how impressed I was with the Chicago Bears. I mean, they were just on fire. I think they went up 45-3, and then Fitzpatrick got benched, and famous Jameis came in and scored. I believe they ended up getting a touchdown, maybe two touchdowns. Well, after Jameis Winston came into the game, it was his first start of the season after his off-field troubles. But man, Mitch Trubisky and the Chicago Bears, that offense is looking pretty solid. They scored a lot of points. Khalil Mack is definitely the big addition to the Chicago Bears. He is on fire, and I'm pretty sure the Raiders and John Gruden are probably kicking themselves in the teeth right now. That has been denied in the media, but I just don't see how you can think that losing Khalil Mack was not a big deal. That man is on fire. Probably going to win the Defensive Player of the Year. I mean, he is just on it. So the Bears look good. Let's see. The Jets versus the Jags. I had the Jags winning. The Jags did not really impress me, though. I think they're having a slow start to the season. Blake Bortles looked really, really good and on top of his game. You wouldn't be able to tell that by the score. It was a very low scoring game, but Blake Bortles was just on fire. He was hitting the right timing, the right accuracy, everything. He looked really good, and he had a lot of rushing plays as well. The Jets and Sam Darnold. I am not sold on Sam Darnold, and I know a lot of people are probably going to bash me and say, "Oh, what the hell are you talking about?" I watched the uh, what was it, the Notre Dame game last year, and Darnold's last season in college, and he just looked terrible. And I was like, what is the hype around this kid? He's not looking great. And I mean, I'm not sold on him. I think he deserves to be in the league. He's that good. And there's That's a problem I have with people bashing professional sports players, because as fans we're like, oh, that person sucks or this team sucks, and that's our opinion, and that's fine. However, I think you have to admit that they're good enough to be where they're at. They're just not good enough to compete with the top people in in those organizations and sports that they're in. And I think that's the case here. Darnold's never going to be a Tom Brady, in my opinion, but most quarterbacks aren't. So you can't really hate on him for that. But I'm not sold. I think he needs some more time, and I'm pretty happy about it because I don't like the Jets. They are also in the Dolphins division, and the more the Bills and Jets and the Patriots lose, the happier I am. Let's see here. Hit the Eagles and the Browns games. The Seattle Seahawks versus the Arizona Cardinals. I had the Seahawks winning, and I was correct. I just don't think Josh Rosen is ready as well. I think all these rookie quarterbacks look good and they have their shining moments, but I don't think they're going to make a difference for some of these teams this season. The Browns being the exception, because even if Mayfield's not playing well, they have Tyrod Taylor as a backup when he gets back to being healthy, and they just have an all-star offense right now. I mean, I guess you can't say it's an all-star, but I think it's a very, very good offense. The Saints versus the Giants. I did not have Eli winning that game, and I was correct. With Odell Beckham and Saquon Barkley and some of the other weapons they have on the Giants team, offense and defensively, I just don't think they're doing too well. I'm not a Giants fan by any means, but I just don't see. I think the money they dropped on Odell to keep him was not a good call, especially because I would like to see Odell go to the Dolphins or, whatever. That's high hopes for me. But I don't think it was a great deal, especially when they had other pieces that needed to be put in play. And Eli's getting older. He's probably near the end of his career, so you need to start investing in a quarterback. Saquon Barkley, that's a good pickup if they can keep him healthy and build around him. Let's see here. The 49ers and the Chargers. I actually had the Chargers winning that game, and I was correct, like always. I think Garoppolo going down and how Garoppolo played the beginning of the season was an indicator that the 49ers are not the 49ers of the last 4 or 5 games of last season that we saw where everybody was on the hype train. I don't think the Niners are that good. Even with Richard Sherman, and it's just, I don't see them doing super hot. The Ravens and the Steelers, I had the Ravens winning that game, and again, I was correct. And then the Chiefs versus Broncos, I had the Chiefs winning because you can't deny Patrick Mahomes right now. That man is on fire. And I think the Chiefs are the team to beat in the AFC. I know the Patriots fans don't want to hear that, but the Steelers were projected to be very good, and they just look terrible. I don't know if Big Ben's having some problems. I don't know if the Le'Veon Bell situation has caused a lot of turmoil in the locker room or something, but morale is down, and Tomlin needs to get some fire lit under those Steelers if they're going to be hot this season, especially with some of the talent in the AFC. The AFC is pretty tough this year compared to years past, where it was just a dominance of who was going to win between the Steelers and the Patriots to make it to the Super Bowl, and the NFC was left to be the more dominant team. I did not get to watch the Vikings versus the Rams game, but let me tell you, that Rams team right now is on fire. Not only do they have probably the most all-star lineup on the defense, Jared Goff looks great. Todd Gurley looks amazing. I mean, the Rams are just on fire. They are the team to be in the NFC. And my early predictions, we got a lot of football left to go, excuse me. We have a lot of football left to play in the season. We're only in week 5 now. But right now, as it stands, I say the Chiefs and the Rams are the favorites to make it to the Super Bowl. Now, that's subject to change, and obviously Patrick Mahomes is still a young QB. I think this is his first year as a starter, and things could change, and we've all seen Kansas City just shut down at the end of the season and not perform to the abilities that they had played earlier on in the season, so that definitely could change. The games that I did not pick were obviously the Vikings and the Rams. I forgot Thursday night football this past week, and then the other two games, which I'll explain the whole situation here in a second, why I did not pick winners and losers on these games, but I didn't choose a winner or loser between the Dolphins and the Patriots. I was very, very, very upset with the Dolphins as a whole. Their defense looked like they'd never played a game in their life after the first two drives. Early on in the game, they looked wonderful. They looked like the Dolphins that had been playing the last 3 games. And then Tom Brady and Belichick just dismantled the defense. The offense was atrocious. Tannehill looked terrible, out of rhythm, was not completing passes. He kept looking for the long bomb to Kenny Stills, and Stills just could not get open. The speed from Jakeem Grant and Kenny Stills was just not there. Parker was a non-factor. Amendola had a few receptions and looked pretty good, but I don't know why we're not giving Kenyon Drake the ball more. We keep feeding Gore, and not that Gore's a bad player, but he's older, and Drake's got more speed, and I think Drake needs to be the one getting more touches. But obviously, I'm not Adam Gase, and we got to do something to bounce back because we're playing the Bengals this week, and we have to beat the Bengals. The Dolphins are 3-1. It's the best start they've had in a while. I think 2013 season maybe, and we have to find a way to keep winning games. But the Dolphins just did not look like the Dolphins of the last 3 games, and a lot of haters are going to say, "Well, it's because we didn't play anybody. We played the Rams, the Jets, and the Titans." But the Titans just destroyed Phil. Well, I don't want to say destroyed, but they made Philly's offensive line and secondary look like trash, and that's the Super Bowl champion, descending Super Bowl champion. So the Titans aren't that terrible. The Jets, yeah, they're not a great team. The Raiders, they're in rebuilding mode. They obviously still have one of the most powerful running backs in the league with Marshawn Lynch, but they're just the Raiders are they're not there yet. I mean, they're not even close. But um, I mean, we played the Patriots, and the Patriots are constantly Super Bowl contenders. So, yeah, we looked terrible against them, though. The Dolphins, as a whole, just did not show up on Sunday, and I don't know if it's the pressure of playing Tom Brady and Bill Belichick at Gillette Stadium or what it was, but those guys just did not show up. They didn't get on the plane, they didn't get off the bus. Half of them probably didn't even dress in their head because the defense, um, I mean, the defense looked good the first 2 drives, and then they just went home. Tom Brady just started scoring on them. It was almost a blowout game. Oh, that's the biggest piece. I don't know why Adam Gase made the decision to bench Ryan Tannehill. Maybe it was because he thought the game was too far out of reach. But Brock Osweiler comes in and scores a touchdown where Tannehill didn't score a single point all game. Um, Mostly 3-and-outs the whole game, and Osweiler comes in, drives down the field, scores a touchdown. So I am not a Brock Osweiler fan, and I am not happy with that decision. Especially, yeah, he's Super Bowl winner, but that's because of Peyton Manning and the defense. The Broncos defense won most of those games that season and won Super Bowl. So I mean, Yeah, Osweiler's not that great of a player. He's not a good quarterback, but he definitely showed that he can be better than Ryan Tannehill, which I do not like Ryan Tannehill as quarterback. I think he's a failed project. Dolphins fans can hate all they want, but it's the truth in my opinion. Um, the other game I did not choose a winner or loser for was the Dallas Cowboys versus the Detroit Lions. I was surprised how bad both teams are this season. Um, and Zeke needs to be touching the ball a lot more. Elliott is the only offensive weapon the Dallas Cowboys have, and him and Dak connected with a lot of passes, and Zeke got some good yardage this game, and I think that's what was the difference maker for this game. But then again, you're playing the Detroit Lions, who are also terrible, uh, which I'm not sure what's so wrong in that team because they have some decent weapons on offense, and uh, Stafford's not a terrible quarterback. He's not great, but he's not terrible. But yeah, the Dallas Cowboys ended up pulling that game uh, and winning just by the hairs on their chinny chin chin, so to say. But I didn't choose winners between the Dolphins, Patriots, and the Cowboys versus the Lions because I have a bet. It's been a 2-year ongoing bet now with my uncle. And the bet this year is $200 and a case of beer for the Dolphins. Whoever has the better record between the Dolphins and the Dallas Cowboys. And last year, I don't know why I continue to jinx my team, but this year I decided I am not going to pick or be super confident in the Dolphins and their games because I don't want to jinx the situation. They're playing well, and other than this hiccup on Sunday against the Super Bowl contending New England Patriots and Tom Brady, who's the GOAT, I think that the Dolphins have an opportunity to do great things this season. I don't see them going to the Super Bowl, but I do see them in playoff contention. And the Dallas Cowboys are just terrible this season. They just don't have any offensive weapons with Dez being gone. It's they need some help, and I'm not sold on Dak Prescott. I think we're in his third season now, and he's just not. I don't think putting Romo out and putting him in was the right choice for Jerry Jones or Garrett. And so anyway, I don't want to jinx my team, and that's why I don't pick the winners or losers for the Cowboys and Dolphins. I just let it play out. Call it superstitious, whatever you want to call it. I have money and beer on the line, and who doesn't like beer and money? So I'm not gonna jinx my team. I just let it play out. But I was not happy with the Dolphins' performance, and I know Adam Gase said that it was just one game, but we need to keep it at one game. We're playing the Bengals, and we need to stomp them and show why we're 3-1. Excuse me. Let's go ahead and take a quick break, real quick, and listen to some sponsors from Blackstone Labs, my supplement sponsor, and we'll be right back. What's going on, everyone? Barbarian Guns and Subs here. I just wanted to take a quick time out to tell you about Blackstone Labs. Visit them at blackstonelabs.com. Use my promo code Barbarian Guns and Subs for 25 to 30% off. That's Barbarian Guns and Subs, all one word. Barbarian Guns and Subs. You will use that promo code for pre-workouts, post-workouts, post-cycle, fat burners. They also have awesome apparel for males and females. They have the ISO cream, which is like ice cream with protein in it. It is awesome. Check it out. Check out all the flavors. And remember my personal favorite pre-workout, Dustex from Blackstone Labs. Visit them at blackstonelabs.com. And don't forget to use my promo code, Barbarian Guns and Subs. All right, we're back. So let's get into this next topic of discussion. It is October, finally. Finally, it is October. My favorite time of the year. Don't laugh. So, let's go ahead and get into this. So, I was having a discussion recently, and I figured would make this a part of the segment on the show for the whole month of October, and that is we're going to go ahead and do a. See, in my family, we like to do marathon watching of horror films throughout the month of October, kind of celebrate Halloween the entire month versus just one day. Um, so, what we do is we watch all of our favorite horror films and slasher films throughout the month of October, and then you obviously see the marathons and stuff they have on TV as well. But being a huge fan, I have Jason and Michael Myers on my desktop. One's a bobblehead, one's a Ken doll with a mask on, I guess, and a knife. But um, so what I wanted to do with this segment was we're gonna go ahead and talk about the best horror film and slasher films of, in my opinion, all time. And we'll come up with a list and a ranking structure as we go. We'll keep it all organic and living. This is not a planned segment as far as having a script or anything like that. We're just going to go with it. And just to kick off this topic, excuse me, I'm going to take a drink. I wanted to start with the obvious ones of Friday the 13th, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Nightmare on Elm Street, Child's Play, Scream. What are some other franchises out there? Obviously, Halloween's the big one, but that's my favorite, so that's why I didn't even mention that yet. The Hatchet series. I don't know if any of you are familiar with the Hatchet series by Adam Green, which stars Kane Hodder, who Kane portrayed Jason 4 times and is basically known as Jason in the industry when it comes to these horror films. I like Kane. I've seen a lot of documentaries and interviews, and I've watched most of his films, and I just like his work. I think he did a wonderful job as Jason, and now he plays this character, Victor Crawley, in Hatchet. So that's another one we can add to the list there. So I'm going to make some notes real quick while we do this. Friday the 13th, Scream, Nightmare on Elm Street, Halloween, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Child's Play, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Child's Play, and Hatchet. If you haven't seen any of the Hatchet films, I suggest watching the first 2 at least. Now, let me kind of set this premise. Hatchet is basically, I don't want to sell the film short or dissuade anyone who's not seen it, but Hatchet's pretty much a copy of Friday the 13th in a lot of ways. Now, the backstory is different. The main character's name is Victor, or not the main character, but the bad guy or villain in the film is Victor Crawley, and he's a deformed, mongoloid-looking character, lives in the swamps of Louisiana, and so basically the story with him is people go out into the swamp area and he kills anyone and everyone that he comes across in like the most gory, craziest kills I've ever seen. And I think that's why Kane Hodder likes playing this character, because he pretty much just gets to fuck people up with any and all. There's one scene where he takes a long, like, I've never seen a chainsaw this large, but it's like super long, and he takes it and rams it in the crotch of 2 dudes, lifts them up, and saws them in half. There's another one where he takes this heavy set lady and just grabs her by her jaw and her head and pulls her upper jaw all the way back so it splits her skull in half at the jaw, and just it's pretty gory and bloody, and it's fun. It's one of those films that you just go to watch and have fun with. It is not one of those suspenseful, super scary. It's like a cheap scare, lots of gore, body count film. It is not a thriller or psychological film at all. Basically, Victor Crawley just shows up and fucks people up. That's the premise of the film. If you like horror films like that, I do, um, then you'll love it. It's called Hatchet by Adam Green. There are now three Hatchets and then another film. It's the fourth film, but it is not called Hatchet. It's called Victor Crawley. Kane Hodder plays Victor Crawley in all those. Kane Hodder also has a starring role in the film as Victor Crawley's father, so he's not in prosthetics and makeup. Um, and he does a really great job. A lot of people don't think of stuntmen as being great actors, but Kane's pretty good at acting. I mean, he's portrayed Jason, and it's hard to be good with a mask on. And Kane finds little subtle ways to have prosthetics, makeups, and masks and still give something to the character. So, Victor Crawley and Hatchet that's a pretty good show in my opinion. Now, do I think it's going to win Academy Awards or should have or anything? No. It is a fun horror film to go watch. It's a slasher film. The story's kind of weak in some parts, but it's definitely Adam Green's vision. You can tell he was heavily influenced by all the classic horror and slasher films. And, excuse me, it's definitely fun to watch and definitely worth watching if you're into that genre. Um, so basically, how this is going to work is we'll continue to talk about these films, and I'll run down the list, and I'm going to write my list as we go through these discussions. But so I'm going to go ahead and rank my top three now, and then we can all debate and discuss over it. But I'm going to tell you my top three and why they're my top three, and then we'll make notable mentions each episode for the month of October. And excuse me, I'm a little under the weather today. But so my top three horror slasher slash series, and number one spot is Halloween. Halloween has always been my favorite horror film, the original, the John Carpenter original, and it is. It's funny how this story happened. So when I was young, like probably old enough to remember, maybe 4 or 5 years old, my family's always watched the Halloween movies during October as a marathon, and as more came out, we'd add those. My mom's not too fond of the Rob Zombie Halloween films, which I absolutely fucking love. I think both Rob Zombie's Halloween and Halloween 2 were amazing. Do I think that they were unfairly judged? Yes, I do. I think a lot of people, when they watch Halloween, expect to see the Michael Myers they know and walk around and just slash people up, and that's why I was glad Rob came in and added his touch to the films. But it's much unfairly judged, like Halloween 3 with the Silver Shamrock masks, which I also think is an amazing film that most people just dismiss or have nothing but harsh things to say about it. Um, but as a young kid, Halloween was the first horror film that I ever watched, and it was just instantly I connected with it and I loved it. I don't know why. I don't know if it's the simplicity of it, if it's just Michael Myers scares the shit out of me. I mean, I've had bad dreams, even to this point, where I'm trying to beat the fuck out of Michael Myers with a baseball bat or a gun or something, and the motherfucker just won't die. And I think that's a testament to the actual film itself, because it is going to go down in history as one of the greatest horror films of all time. Um, it just won't die, and you can try to unseat it with all these films that come out, but nothing touch. I don't think, with all the great films out there, I don't think any of them are as good as Halloween. It was simple. It lived by the rule, KISS. Keep it simple, stupid. And it didn't take itself like, it wasn't like an Academy Award winning film. John Carpenter and Deborah Hill just wrote an awesome script, came up with the idea, filmed it. The mask was simple looking at the time, and Jamie Lee Curtis and her star role just was excellent. Um, for a film in 1978, it was just a great horror film, and John Carpenter just did an excellent job. And for some reason, I've always connected with it as a child. So, Halloween is my favorite. It's probably one of my favorite movies of all time. Not just horror films, but movies in general. Halloween, the original, is probably in my top 10 favorite films of all time. I'd say even top 5. Um, there's a few other John Carpenter films that are in my top 10, which it's not a bias towards John Carpenter films. I just think he makes films that speak to me, I guess. I don't know. Um, but Halloween's just always connected with me, and it's always terrified me. You watch that, just the opening credits and the iconic music, the theme song. It's the mask, the feeling, the mood. Just it's a great film, great acting. Well, from the main actors, obviously there's some campy acting from some of the other players, but that's fine. That's Jamie Lee Curtis and Donald Pleasance acted very well. Um, but yeah, overall, it was a great film, and it's always stuck with me, and it scares me to this day. When that movie comes on, the lights go on, and I got a statue of Michael Myers here on my desk. He's my favorite uh, Hollywood horror film serial killer, I guess, if you will, and it's just something about the character so simple, and I really like that film, and um, I've watched a lot of documentaries of the film, and I just think John Carpenter and Deborah Hill's script was amazing for it. So my second um, franchise, which not all of these films are going to be franchised, but I'm starting with the franchises because they're the most popular. But I'm going to go ahead and make a list as we go. Today we'll cover my top 3, and I think it's a cross between, and these are my uh, number 2 and number 3 picks, and it's hard for me to really choose which one I want to be second and third, because to me both of them are really important to the horror film genre. But I have, between Scream and Friday the 13th, um, just iconic characters, and then obviously Scream being very, very well written script. It's tough, but I'm gonna have to say, I'm old school, and I knew Jason before Ghostface, so I say Friday the 13th would be my number 2 pick. And Victor Miller, who wrote the original script for the first Friday the 13th, wrote an amazing script, casting a vengeful mother who wanted to get revenge on the camp counselors who were having sex and doing drugs and just not doing their job watching the children at the lake. It's a very simple premise, but it makes for a very good storyline, especially when you put together the rest of the Friday the 13th series and some of the far out wacky things that they've done with the series. I think the original Friday the 13th makes the series worth putting as my number 2. Um, Sean Cunningham produced the film. I believe he is also the director for the first one. I'm not sure. I can look that up real quick. I don't want to put out bad information. But the Friday the 13th series has gone on. So many films have come in their place. Uh, excuse me. um, yes, Sean Cunningham directed the first one. So, I'm trying to. I don't even know how many there are now. I mean, that's how crazy that series has gotten out of control. I've seen them all and I own them all, but I just off the top of my head, I don't know how many there are. Um, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So 12 if you include Freddy vs. Jason. So, anyways, the Friday the 13th series to me is fun. After the first film, you really get into the character of Jason, which Jason's mentioned in the first film only really as a plot point. And you see him at the end of the film. Obviously, by now, I'm pretty sure most people have seen the movie, so I'm not really giving anything away. But Betsy Palmer is Jason's mom, and she starts killing all the people that visit Camp Crystal Lake. And so then, part two, the main character from the first one, she gets off in the first few minutes of the film, and then you go to the lake again where another group of teenagers are at the lake, and they start getting killed by a guy in a burlap sack, which we find out is Jason. He's got one eye showing out of the bag, and that's an iconic view of Jason as well, because the first time you see him, and a lot of people, I've seen tattoos and fan art and really cool pictures of that. It's a very simple design for a character, almost where Victor Crawley from the Hatchet series I was talking about earlier um, kind of has the same look as Jason in Friday the 13th Part 2. Now, Part 3 was up until I watched the Kane Hodder Friday the 13th Part 3 was my favorite, and I still love Part 3 because it's the first time you see the hockey mask um, donned on Jason. And I just like Part 3. I think it's very cheesy and campy, and it's just a Friday the 13th film. There's no huge plot points or anything like that. It's just Jason killing a bunch of people. Um, and then, halfway through the film, he gets the hockey mask from, oh, what's that kid's name? I'm gonna have to look it up. Uh, Fuck, I thought I had it in my head, but I apologize for this. Da, 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 da. Shelly. Shelly's the character who had the hockey mask, and he was messing around with this character named Vera and trying to flirt with her, and he has the hockey mask. Well, Jason kills him and then puts the hockey mask on and then starts killing the rest of them. Part 4 has Corey Feldman in it, which it's Part 4 is a very funny movie. Corey Feldman's this little nerdy kid who doesn't have any friends. He lives with his mom and his sister at Camp Crystal Lake and has a dog named Gordon. And he makes masks and plays video games. And this group of teenagers rent out the guest house at the lake, and they just start dying one after another from Jason. Part 5. I don't. Okay, so part 5 is the film where Tommy Jarvis is in a halfway house, and it's not actually Jason doing the killings. Tommy Jarvis is having like hallucinations that he sees Jason, and Tommy Jarvis, if you don't know, is the character that Corey Feldman played in part 4, grown up, and now he's in a halfway house because he beat the shit out of Jason and just became troubled and has hallucinations and all that. But you find out it's not actually Jason doing the killings, it's somebody using the Jason mythology to do these killings. Now, part 6 is called Jason Lives, and that starts out with Tommy Jarvis stabbing an electric pole into Jason's body, which then, because of movie magic, lightning bolt strikes it, and you have the nod to Frankenstein, where the lightning bolt hits the rod and then brings Jason back to life, and then he starts fucking people up. Now, there's a cool scene in this film with the paintball group. They're out playing capture the flag with paintball guns, and Jason just starts fucking them all up, killing them left and right. Um, then the next film is Friday the 13th Part 7, and I believe that it is called The New Blood, and it follows a character named Tina who has psychic abilities. Now, like I said, the Friday the 13th franchise has taken a lot of wonky little steps out of just straight up horror and just kind of made campy, cheesy films. Now, that's all right if you like it, and I love it, so I watch it, and it's just great fun, which is what entertainment's supposed to be. It's supposed to be fun. Too many times in our society, we inject a lot of bullshit and realism into our escapes, and then you're not really escaping. Like a lot of things going on in Hollywood and TV right now just piss me off because it's like just straight up propaganda and agenda. And where's the fun? I want to escape from reality when I'm paying my $12 and spending my hour and a half to 2 hours watching a movie. I want to escape from the bullshit that we have to deal with in the world. And Hollywood seems to not be doing that, which is why I've not seen a lot of films recently. Um, but A New Blood is fun. Tina has psychic abilities. She kills her father in the beginning, and then she starts having these hallucinations of Jason, which her psychic abilities actually, in the last film, Tommy Jarvis wraps a chain around Jason's neck and buries him at the bottom of Camp Crystal Lake. Um, Now, obviously, Jason doesn't die, but he's trapped down there at the bottom of the lake with a chain around his neck, strapped to a cinder block. And Tina, with her psychic abilities, brings him out of the water on accident, and then he starts fucking people up. That is actually the first film with Kane Hodder playing Jason, and it is also the film with the famous sleeping bag kill. This lady's in a sleeping bag. Jason grabs the bag up and smacks it against a tree and kills her. Um, Obviously, if you're into horror films and slasher films, that's probably interesting to you. If not, then you're just like, these people are sick freaks and why do they like this shit and blah, blah, blah. It is entertainment. It is for fun. It's not real. We don't watch these movies and then go out and be like, oh, I want to slam a sleeping bag into a tree. We're fucking grown adults and we're human beings with intelligent minds. We know how to separate reality from fiction. Well, most of us. I can't say the same for everybody, but a lot of us can. Um, the next film is Jason Takes Manhattan. When I first saw it, I wasn't too keen on it. I thought it was just stretching. But they take Jason away from Camp Crystal Lake and put him in the city of New York City, supposedly, but it was actually shot in Canada. Um, there were a few scenes from New York that they shot like skyline shots and all that, but it's actually pretty cool. There's a few funny moments and some cool kills, but overall, it's a good Friday the 13th horror slasher film. It's just worth watching if you like it. The next one, which I was not keen on at all, I still not super happy about it. It's not one of my favorites, but it's called Jason Goes to Hell: The Final Friday. Also a Kane Hodder Jason film. The premise of this one is the FBI traps Jason, blows him up, and he dies. And then his heart is eaten by the autopsy coroner, and he becomes Jason, not with the mask. He just starts fucking people up, and then Jason's spirit jumps from body to body, and then eventually he becomes Jason again at the end of the film, where he dies, and then Freddy Krueger's hand pops out of the ground and pulls Jason's mask down to hell, which starts the whole Freddy vs. Jason idea, which that was in 1993, and Freddy vs. Jason didn't happen until 2003, so 10 years later, we finally get that. So, yeah, it's okay. It's not my favorite. The next Jason film is called Jason X, or now known as Jason in Space, but a lot of people hated that film. And I thought the character Jason, looked awesome in it. Kane Hodder's last appearance as Jason is this film. There's an Uber Jason that happens later on. It sounds stupid and far fetching, but again, we're here for entertainment, and I definitely recommend watching it. It's called Jason X. It's got a lot of sci-fi actors and actresses in it. Very fun to watch. Very, very cool movie. They actually recreate the sleeping bag scene in Jason X. Now, Freddy vs. Jason was very popular in the movie theaters. A lot of people went and saw it. I loved Freddy vs. Jason. I was upset that Kane Hodder was not playing Jason. But the film itself, it's goofy and fun, and there's a couple moments that like nod to all the old films for Freddy and Jason. But overall, it was a great movie. I thought it was a battle of two iconic horror films, kind of like the Batman or not Batman. Went way off topic there. The Frankenstein versus Dracula versus Wolfman's and all that. I thought it was pretty cool to do that, or like the Alien versus Predator. The next Friday the 13th was the Friday the 13th reboot. Um, Nothing new there, and honestly, I think it was overproduced, and whoever it just was not a good film. I mean, it could have been a Jason Friday the 13th film, and it was, but there was no reason to remake it. I mean, all they were doing was just killing kids in the woods, teenagers, I guess I should say, with Jason going from a sack to the hockey mask and kind of retelling the story a little bit in the beginning. Otherwise, it's okay. I mean, it's not my favorite. It's not the worst one, but definitely it was not my favorite. Um, Now, my final film review or discussion today on this, the third and franchises that I like the most is Scream. The first Scream movie came out, I was probably in middle school, maybe just before middle school. And I've always had parents who, they explain the films and like, this is not real, it's a film, it's entertainment, blah, blah, blah. Don't go out and kill people. And, common sense parenting, pretty much. My parents did their job. They sat down and said, if you're going to watch something like this, then here's the rules. Here's the what's going on. This is not real. Um, so I watched Scream. The first time I saw it, I watched it over and over again on back in the day when they had the pay-per-view channels. When you get subscriptions to the pay-per-view channels, the house we lived in, we had a subscription to it, and Scream just kept playing over and over again all day because it had just came out. And I watched that film probably for a week straight, at least 4 times a day. I memorized all the lines. I memorized everything. Like, it was just the film itself was just so damn smart. Um, the story, the plot, the character was simple. Everything about the film, and there's a body count in the film, but it's not. There was not, to my knowledge, or that I remember, it wasn't that gruesome. Like there, I've seen a lot of more fucked up, gruesome films, especially the Friday the 13th movies, the Hatchet films. It was nicely done and classy, but the story was just so smart. It was like a detective crime thriller with horror, but it was also the first big film, which then a lot of Hollywood movies started doing this, where they made fun of themselves in the film, like I'll be right back, and like the rules of a horror film. You don't say you'll be back. You don't go investigate the noise. Um, it was just super smart film. And then the twists at the end. Um, the second Scream movie was also very cool how they wrote the story and how it tied into the first one. And then the third one also was interesting. I thought out of the original three, the third one was probably the weakest. Um, where they're doing the set design and actually filming the Stab movie, which is the uh, nod to the Scream films inside the film. Basically, Sidney Prescott and the Woodsboro murders are being exploited in Hollywood films, and so they bring Cindy on the set of one of the films, and then murdering starts happening. And I don't remember who the killer is in that one. I know Tommy's mother is one of the killers in the second one. And the third one, I'm not too sure. I forget who it was. But the fourth Scream, it took a while for it to come out. I think they were debating whether or not they want to do it, and then Wes Craven actually said that he would do another trilogy. Um, and when the fourth one came out, I was kind of done at that point. I didn't really have interest in watching it, but then somebody told me it was worth watching and really good, so I went in there and I checked it out, and definitely glad that I went in and watched the film because the fourth one was probably the freshest idea and the most um, intelligent written script for the Scream film since the first one, and I love the nods. I love the joking and not taking itself too seriously, but it was just really well written, and it was cool to watch. As the characters had aged, so it was just a very interesting script, which made for a very good movie addition to the franchise. Then, after Wes Craven's death, um, number 5 and 6 never came to be. So they came out with the Scream television series on MTV, which I've just recently started watching. It actually has nothing to do with the original films. Even the mask is different, at least for the first 2 seasons, I believe. Um, but it's an interesting series so far from what I've seen. It's pretty well written now. That series is kind of like what I was talking about earlier, where Hollywood and entertainment just can't seem to relinquish reality and let us go into a fantasy world for an hour or so because everything is politicized and social issues are like threaded deeply into the writing of this show, which I think takes away from the the actual show itself. But it's not. I'm not a fan of that, but I do look past it and watch the show. But I mean, it's like whatever the agenda of Hollywood is right now, socially and politically, they've been injecting it in every single aspect of their work and their art, and that's fine. I mean, it's to the writer, it's to the producers, it's their money, their creativity, and if we don't like it, we don't have to fucking watch it. However, I wish that we could get away from making everything in our lives so political and social, and just like let's go back to having fun. I don't care what you do or what your opinion is about this stuff. I'm here paying my money to be entertained. And if not that that stuff hasn't happened, it's happened throughout, but it's like so prevalent and just so in your face now. It's not even innuendos or like hidden in there or little Easter eggs. It's just like straight out in your face. This is what this is about. And I think that takes some of the detective work out of it for us, which also makes it not as fun. But so, anyway, to recap, my top three horror franchises are Halloween series, Friday the 13th, and Scream. We will continue to have these discussions about horror films throughout the month of October. This is episode 3 of the Explicit Thoughts. And if you disagree with my opinions, tough shit. This is my show. And thank you for listening. Hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, wherever you're at, whatever you're doing, do it to the best of your abilities. And have a good evening.